Today's video, Stolpersteine, the world's largest memorial.
We are Lisa and Greg, an American couple living abroad in Spain. If you're curious about the crazy, funny, and surprising differences between the US and Europe, you came to the right place. And we are on our way to 10,000 subscribers, so go ahead and hit the subscribe button so you can be along for the party. All right, and this is Red Pen. Lisa will include a link in the description so you can go and show Red Pen some love.
Mm-hmm. I think this is just an attempt to learn more about Germany's history.
Yeah.
See what's out there, what's over there, and just learning.
Okay, here we go.
This video was made possible with the generous support of my patrons. If you would like to join them in helping grow this channel, you can do so at the links in the description below. Every day, German pedestrians
Let's see if I can make it through this video.
Okay. Pay a small tribute to victims of Nazi crimes as they walk by and acknowledge Stolpersteine, or stumbling blocks, laid down in their path. These stumbling blocks, although most prevalent in Germany, can be found all across Europe and serve as a way of honoring those who were lost and ensure that their stories are not forgotten. Each stumbling block, or stumbling stone, is located outside a business or residence owned or occupied by an individual who was euthanized, forced to migrate, imprisoned, or exterminated by the Nazis. Many of the stumbling stones commemorate the Jews, Roma, Poles, homosexuals, the physically or mentally disabled, Jehovah's Witnesses, black people, socialists and communists, as well as other resistance fighters that helped undermine the Nazi regime.
Oh my God.
Most of the stones contain the header, "Here lived," followed by the name and life date of the person known to have resided at that location, as well as the date of their deportation. The Stumbling Stone Project began in 1992, 50 years after Heinrich Himmler signed the Auschwitz Decree, ordering the deportation of Sinti and Roma people to the extermination camp. To commemorate this date, the anti-fascist artist Günther Demnig traced the road to deportation by pulling a self-built rolling pavement printing machine through the city of Cologne to the train station, where the deportees boarded trains to extermination camps. Afterward, he installed the first stumbling stone in front of Cologne's city hall. On its brass plate were engraved the first lines of the Auschwitz Decree, which mandated the deportation of, quote, all gypsy mixed bloods, Roma gypsies, and members of gypsy clans, unquote, to the Auschwitz extermination camp. When Demnig planted the first stumbling block, it was intended to highlight the widely ignored persecution of Roma and Sinti populations from Germany, but gradually expanded into a historical commemoration project to include all victims of Nazi persecution. Demnig decided to commemorate each individual victim with their own stumbling block, because many of the victims of Nazi terror perished in the Holocaust or battlefield and were never given a proper memorial. When Demnig partnered with Michael Friedrich Friedlander in 2005 to help manufacture the brass plates for the cobblestones, the project quickly took off. By 2007, the pair had laid 13,000 stumbling stones across 280 cities. In 2009, they laid their 20,000th stone in Hamburg, which featured a ceremony, a gathering of government officials, members of the Jewish community, and descendants of other victims. By 2011, they had laid their 30,000th stone, which extended the project to roughly 700 cities, with many well beyond the borders of Germany. In 2013, the installation of the 40,000th stumbling stone took place in Oldambt, Netherlands, as one of the first in memory of Dutch communists who were executed by the German occupation forces for hiding Jews and Roma.
Oh, wow.
On the 11th of January 2015, the 50,000th stumbling stone was installed in Torino, Italy for Eleonora Levi. On the 29th of December 2019, the 75,000th stone was installed in Bavaria for Martha and Benno Rosenbaum. Today, in 2023, there are over 100,000 stumbling stones covering 30 countries across Europe, including countries which were never occupied by the Nazis, such as...
I'm glad we know about this so we can look for these.
Yeah. I wonder if they're still adding some.
This is, I don't know. Well, it seems like they were. I don't know.
Yeah.
If it's still, they can still, you guys can still see it.
Yeah.
Being built.
Seems like it.
Or being put in. Oops. Okay.
including countries which were never occupied by the Nazis, such as Sweden, Spain, Switzerland, and Ireland.
Oh.
Oh, wow.
Through its development, the Stumbling Stone Project has also come to develop into a reflection of the geographic breadth of the horror inflicted upon the victims. Nazi persecution extended all across Europe, and therefore, the Memorial Project has come to take.
Wow.
I guess those are the places that these stones are in, so where it was impacted.
Yeah, where the people were executed for some reason or another,
Yeah.
for one reason or another.
Nazi persecution extended all across Europe, and therefore, the Memorial Project has come to take on a similar scope. But despite its vast and international breadth, the Stumbling Stone Project remains a grassroots initiative.
Oh,
Local
I was wondering who was funding all this,
yeah,
but it's grassroots.
yeah.
Nice.
So I wonder if that means that they are laying all these over 100,000 bricks by themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's probably a nonprofit organization, I would imagine, just doing all this.
yeah, that's amazing.
breadth, the Stumbling Stone Project remains a grassroots initiative. Local groups, often residents of a particular street or school children working on a project, come together to research the biographies of local victims and raise the €120 it costs to install each stone.
Oh, wow.
Community groups maintain and clean existing memorials and help research the names and identities of people they wish to commemorate in the future.
Oh yeah, look at all the room
Oh, yeah. Oh,
for
yeah.
future
I didn't even notice that.
Stolpersteins.
Oh, that's a great point.
But while the Stolpersteine project is an inherently collective endeavor, the characteristics of the project bear the unmistakable print of the artist. Günter Demnig never shied away from making political points through his artwork, and is quite familiar with the idea of using an expansive geographic territory as his canvas. As a student, he became politically active and outspoken with his provocative art exhibits that were critical of society, politics, and state violence. In 1968, protesting against the US invasion of Vietnam, he painted a US flag on the window of his art studio in Germany, which replaced the stars with skulls, earning him a brief stint in jail.
Oh, wow.
In 1970, he marched for 21 days in protest of the blind hype in the emerging art industry, specifically around the question of when an artist can truly consider themselves an artist. On his 818-kilometer journey, he applied 1.5 tons of paint to the road with the assistance of a self-made printing wheel, which read Duftmarken Kassel, Paris Demning 80, which once again earned him the attention of the authorities.
That's one way
In
of getting it.
1981, he used another self-made device to disperse animal blood along a pathway or a blood trail from Kassel to London's Tate Gallery. The year after, he spanned an Ariadne thread over 1,000 kilometers from Kassel to Venice, and in 1984, he buried canned landscapes along the path of his trek across the Alps. Demnig's Stumbling Stone project emerged from and carries similar characteristics to these previous works, but the significance of the Stolpersteine project is in how its permanence uniquely grounds and maintains collective memory. Demnig often quotes the Talmud, which says that a person is only forgotten when their name is forgotten. His decision to use mini memorials is therefore rooted in the need for each individual victim to be remembered as individuals with names, homes, and lives that were once lived where you are standing. Most of the victims of the Nazis were Jewish, and therefore most of the stumbling blocks commemorate Jews. But the Stumbling Stone project extends recognition to all persecuted minorities under Nazism, and in fact began by highlighting the persecution of Roma and Sinti. As the years passed, it also came to highlight the extent to which homosexuals, communists, the disabled, criminals, or other, quote, anti-social elements were targeted as well.
Yeah, it's kind of bringing that to light because, to be honest, I didn't know it was. I mean, I guess I had an idea, but they persecuted and
Well, it's just not as well reported.
yeah.
We obviously, if you
Jehovah's
didn't fit what was acceptable then, and that could have been anything.
Yeah.
But
seriously.
But the majority of what we know and heard is that it was Jewish people. So, yeah.
In an interview given before laying 2 stones outside a house in Cologne, Demnig explains, Here we have a mother who has been stigmatized for being antisocial. The child was placed in a children's home. Both were murdered.
Oh, wow.
On the 23rd of October 2018, a small ceremony gathered to commemorate the installation of a Stolperstein in Frankfurt, Germany. This particular stumbling stone was in memory of a disabled man named Willy Zimmerer, a victim of Nazi euthanasia who was murdered at Hadamar on the 18th of December 1944 at the age of 43. The significance of this particular unveiling was that it marked the introduction of the 70,000th stone commemorating an individual victim of Nazi terror, and made the Stolpersteine project the largest memorial in the world, which in 2023 now spans over 700 cities across 30 countries.
Wow.
But even as they grow older, and the demand for Stolpersteine continues to grow across Europe, Demnig and Friedrich Friedlander refuse to automate the production process.
Oh, cool.
They individually and manually imprint the text, fasten each brass plate to the stone, and install them with their own hands. They see this as an important part of the process of honoring the memory of the victims.
Yeah.
The Holocaust was so systematic. What they invented as a means of mass slaughter, it was more or less automated. We don't want anything like that.
Exactly.
Memorials
do
are
the opposite of just, because they were all just like herded, so their individualism was taken away.
Right.
And so they're giving it back to them. So I think that's great.
Yeah.
Was more or less automated. We don't want anything like that. Memorials are often located in one single location and often feature a large, elaborate, purposefully designed space, layout, and statue. Large, grandiose memorials are intended to pay recognition to a large number of people who lost their lives. Many countries, for example, have a tomb of the unknown soldier, which is intended to represent or embody the mass of individual identities of soldiers who fell in war. But the Stolpersteine are notably different from these large memorials that commemorate the dead through an anonymous face.
Right.
The stumbling stones are like gravestones in that they show the names, ages, locations, and dates of death, thus providing an intimate connection to the past. As one resident says, "I find it much more moving than these colossal or labyrinthine memorials.
Yeah.
The Stolpersteine are so much more vivid and personal."
Yeah, and I feel like I would want to say their names. I would look at it and say their names out loud.
Right. Yeah. I know in America they had the Vietnam Wall. That's like the name of the soldiers that were lost. But I mean, this to me seems so much more moving. I suppose. I don't know if I want to say more moving, but I think it's cool.
Labyrinthine memorials. The Stolpersteine are so much more vivid and personal. Also, unlike large memorials, the stumbling stones are not located in one single location or even country, but
and the difference between the memorial you're talking about, what is it? The
Vietnam Wall.
The Vietnam Wall. Well, I think it just has their name, so this kind of gives you a little bit more context of when they were born, when they passed, or when they were taken.
Right.
Like
I mean, I don't know exactly what's there. That could be on that wall too.
Oh, I think it's just their names.
Yeah, it may be. I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah, you're right.
I've been there, but I don't, it's like 20, 30 years ago. I don't really remember.
The stumbling stones are not located in one single location or even country, but a vast, decentralized territory that mirrors the reach of Nazi terror. Stolpersteine return the victims to their neighborhoods, to their homes, with their families, to the places where they belong.
That's true.
Demnig suggests that this is supposed to provoke people into thinking about what happened to individuals and families during the Nazi era. Families were torn apart, and Stolpersteine can at least bring them back together symbolically. For example, in front of a house in Amsterdam, a Stolperstein might be placed for a woman who survived Auschwitz, alongside two Stolpersteine for her parents who did not. In this way, the Stolperstein reunites the family. The Stumbling Stone project has grown with widespread popularity and international recognition, but not everyone is convinced. Charlotte Knobloch, Holocaust survivor and head of the Jewish community in Munich and Bavaria, has strongly opposed the project, finding the placement of Stolpersteine underfoot to be unacceptable.
Oh.
Under the Nazi regime, Jewish headstones were widely vandalized and repurposed as bricks to lay roads and sidewalks across Europe.
Oh.
And the idea of treading over the names inscribed on Jewish memorials while walking down the street can be seen as resurrecting a past that some Jews would prefer to move beyond. She says, "It is my firm belief."
I didn't think about that.
I could see her point.
Yeah.
I could see her point because we're stepping on it.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, maybe people could just be careful. I don't know.
I know.
Yeah.
I feel
that
like
some Jews
should be careful.
Yeah.
would prefer to move beyond. She says, "It is my firm belief that we need to do everything we can in order to make sure that remembrance preserves the dignity of the victims. For me, stumbling over a piece of metal in the ground is anything but dignified." For Michael Friedrich Friedlander, the craftsman who fabricates each individual Stolperstein, criticism of the project is unwarranted. "I can't think of a better form of remembrance. If you want to read the stone, you must bow before the victim." The artists also point to the growing threat of fascism in the contemporary world and want to use the Stolpersteine as subtle reminders that fascism is still with us. But the strongest validation of the project is in its cultural impact. The growing demand for Stolpersteine is coming at a time when these types of memorials are standing in for living memory, no longer with us. The surviving victims of the Nazi regime are passing away from old age, and with them, so too are the first-hand accounts of Nazi terror. These stumbling stones are tools of keeping the collective memory of the Holocaust and other fascist crimes alive for future generations who won't have the benefit of hearing about this history from the victims themselves. In Germany, memorials to the victims of the Nazis can be widely found, and in this way, the country has a strong sense of its collective identity in relation to its history. But Germany is somewhat unique in this regard. Most European nations struggle or even refuse to fully acknowledge their role in persecuting Jews during the Nazi era. For example, up until 2015, the Czech Republic had no public memorials, museums, learning centers, or even a plaque commemorating the mass deportation of Jews that occurred in this country 80 years ago. However, even during this period, the streets of Prague were dotted with roughly 300 Stolpersteine, which stood as the only trace of the city's memory of this history. Even though they sometimes became quite dirty and were often neglected, these stumbling stones initiated the need for further public commemoration in the Czech Republic. In 2015, the capital city Prague began introducing memorials and other sites of commemoration around its history of Nazi collaboration. There are now 2 prominent memorials in the capital city, and discussions for a museum or learning center continue to persist. Today, the artists of the Stolpersteine have bittersweet feelings towards their project. The work can be devastating, such as the time they produced 34 stumbling stones to be placed outside a former Jewish orphanage in Hamburg. But they also feel compelled to continue what they see as a moral and political imperative, all the more so in the face of an ascendant far right in Germany and across Europe. Friedrich Friedlander says, "I feel responsibility. When you know the history and see what's happening today, there's just so many parallels."
Oh no.
To their pleasant surprise, the project has slowly become more popular each year and has surpassed the expectations of the artist, with Debnick saying that he expected maybe a few hundred or 1,000 stones, but he never dreamed that the project would take off like this. From the outset, Debnick always understood that this project would never be able to pay full commemoration to all the individual victims of Nazi terror. And although the goal is to keep the project going, it will always remain incomplete and therefore theoretical. Each individual Stolperstein is part of the broader totality of the project, which not only commemorates the individuals whose names are on the stones, but commemorates all the victims of the Nazi regime and fights to prevent anything like it from happening again. More determined than ever, even in his 70s, Debnick has no plans to quit. "As long as my knees are still okay, I'll keep going."
Cool.
I wonder if they can, because that one did look like, I don't know if they're kneeling in front of Stolperstein, but if they can just, they showed a couple pictures of them being off the center of the sidewalk. So they're not in the center of the sidewalk where I could see it could be an insult.
All right. Well, man, I don't know. I didn't have much to react to say in that one.
No, it was
I
just
kind of
interesting.
wanted to
Yeah.
to watch it. I think on this one, I'm going to rely on my friends who have some personal experience and an opinion on this.
Yeah.
To let us know in the comments what you think.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting.
Yeah. Now I'm curious to kind of look down to see if there's anything here in our city.
Yeah, that's true. We'll definitely be looking for that. All right, so let's see what the people have to say. This is so interesting. I've always been meaning to learn more about these. Excellent documentary about Stolpersteine and their creator, Gunther Denmig. In May 2024, Mr. Denmig installed 9 stumbling blocks in front of our family's former residence and business in Lampertheim, Germany. It was an honor to meet such a down-to-earth hero who, with his small team, has devoted his life to this endeavor. Interesting documentary, but as I'm from Czech, I would oppose the criticism about lack of the memorial. Already in 1960s, the Jewish Museum has opened the memorial to the victims of the Shoah from the Czech lands in Pinkas Synagogue in Prague.
Oh, okay. So she's saying there's some out there.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Okay, cool.
She would know.
Well, that was a good one. Just learning more and more and more every day about Europe and the history of Europe. So I think it was awesome. So as always, thank you for stopping by, and we will see you on the next video.
Bye.
Peace.